She saved the sniper's life with one shot. Now they're both hunted emotional adventure. The first shot. The bullet tore through the morning silence before Emma Hayes even heard the crack of the rifle. Pine bark exploded 6 inches from her head as she stumbled backward, her camera swinging wildly from its strap. Her scream died in her throat. Another shot, this one deliberately high, a warning carved into the mountain air itself. Welcome to Heartbound Ashes. If you love stories of fierce protection, dangerous secrets, and romance that defies every boundary, hit that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss what happens next. Emma's hands shook as she raised them slowly, her heart hammering against her ribs. She'd been a wildlife photographer for 7 years, had faced down grizzlies and crossed avalanche zones, but nothing had prepared her for this, for the cold certainty that someone had her in their crosshairs. Turn around. The voice echoed down from somewhere above, rough and commanding. Walk back the way you came. Now. She couldn't see him. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, bouncing off granite faces and through dense stands of Douglas fir. Her legs trembled as she took one careful step backward, then another. I'm sorry, she called out, hating how her voice cracked. I didn't know this was private property. I'm leaving. You should have checked before you crossed my fence line an hour ago. An hour. He'd been watching her for an hour. The watcher in the woods. Emma's mind raced as she retreated down the narrow trail. She'd hiked into these Montana mountains at dawn, chasing rumors of a rare wolf pack that supposedly denayed in these remote valleys. The area wasn't marked on any map she'd studied. No posted signs. No visible boundaries. But someone lived up here. Someone who didn't want visitors. She'd made it maybe 50 yards when a figure materialized on the trail ahead, so suddenly she gasped and nearly fell. He stood between 2 massive pines, rifle held loosely but ready, his face half hidden beneath a dark baseball cap and several days of stubble. Tall. Broad-shouldered. His flannel shirt stretched across a frame built for hard mountain living. But it was his eyes that stopped her, cold, gray as winter storms, assessing her with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, he said, his voice lower now, more controlled. Which is it? Emma forced herself to meet those storm-gray eyes. I'm a photographer. Wildlife. I didn't see any posted signs. Because I took them down. He moved closer and she caught the scent of pine smoke and something darker, gun oil maybe. People who ignore signs usually have worse intentions than people who never see them in the first place. I would never. Save it. He cut her off with a gesture, then seemed to really look at her for the first time. His gaze traveled over her expensive camera, her worn hiking boots, the small pack that held only lenses and emergency supplies. Something in his expression shifted. You really are just a photographer. That's what I've been trying to tell you. A muscle worked in his jaw. This is private land. 5,000 acres. I bought it specifically because it's remote enough that people leave me alone. I'll go, Emma said quickly. I'm sorry. I was following the wolf pack. There's no wolf pack. She blinked. But the reports. False. Started by me. Keeps hikers and hunters from pushing this far into the backcountry. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Congratulations. You're the first person in 3 years to make it this far. The impossible choice. Emma stared at him, trying to reconcile the man who'd shot at her. Shot at her, with this almost conversational tone. You could have killed me. No. His voice went flat, certain. I could have killed you if I'd wanted to. I was 800 yards away with a clear sight line and perfect conditions. Those shots were warnings, nothing more. The casual way he said it sent ice down her spine. This wasn't some weekend warrior playing at being a mountain man. This was someone with real training, real skills. Real danger. Who are you? She whispered. He studied her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling sense he was calculating something. Weighing options she couldn't begin to guess. Name's Nathaniel Cross. And you need to leave these mountains. Today. Don't come back. That's it? You threaten me and then just send me away. That's mercy. His eyes hardened. Next person who crosses my property line might not get the same consideration. Emma shouldered her pack. anger finally breaking through her fear. You know what? Fine. I'll go. But you should know that I filed my hiking plan with the ranger station. They know exactly where I am. Something flickered across his face, respect, maybe, or dark amusement. Smart. But rangers don't patrol private land, and they sure as hell don't come looking until you're 3 days overdue. He was right, and they both knew it. I'll walk you out, he said, slinging his rifle across his back. Make sure you don't get lost. Shadows of the past. They walked in tense silence, Emma acutely aware of his presence 3 steps behind her. The trail wound down through old-growth forest, past a creek that sang over smooth stones. Twice she glanced back and found him scanning the tree line with practiced vigilance, as if threats lurked in every shadow. You're military, she said finally. Aren't you? Was. Sniper. His jaw tightened. Among other things. The pieces clicked together, the isolation, the paranoia, the deadly precision. You're hiding. I'm surviving. He moved past her to lead the way across a fallen log. There's a difference. From what? He stopped so suddenly she nearly ran into his back. When he turned, his eyes were cold, dangerous. From questions like that. From people who can't leave well enough alone. Emma's pulse jumped, but she held her ground. If you wanted me dead, I'd be dead. You said so yourself. So what do you really want, Nathaniel Cross? The forest seemed to hold its breath. I want, he said quietly, for you to forget you ever came here. Forget this place exists. Forget I exist. And if I can't? His expression shifted into something darker, more complicated. Then we're both in trouble. Before she could ask what that meant, a distant crack echoed through the valley, sharp, unmistakable. Another gunshot. But this time it hadn't come from Nathaniel. His entire body went rigid. In one fluid motion he grabbed Emma's arm and hauled her behind a massive boulder, his hand clamping over her mouth as voices drifted up from the trail below. Tracks lead this way. 2 sets. He's got someone with him. Nathaniel's grip tightened. Against her ear. His whisper was barely audible, but the words froze her blood. Don't make a sound. The people hunting me just found us both. What deadly secret is Nathaniel hiding? Who are these hunters and why do they want him dead? Emma's simple photography trip has turned into a fight for survival. But the most dangerous part might be the man sworn to protect her. Trust built on bullets. Hunted. Emma's heart slammed against her ribs as Nathaniel's hand remained pressed over her mouth. Through the gaps in the boulder, she could see shadows moving below, 3 men, maybe 4, spreading out in a tactical formation that spoke of military training. They moved like wolves, coordinated and deadly. Nathaniel's breath was warm against her ear. His body coiled tight as a spring. When I move, you run north. Straight line. Don't stop, don't look back. Half a mile up. There's a cave hidden behind a waterfall. Wait for me there. She shook her head frantically. He was asking her to run blindly through unknown forests while armed men hunted them. Emma. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried absolute authority. Those men down there? They're not here to talk. They're here to finish what they started 6 months ago. And if they find you with me, they'll kill you just for being a witness. His hand slowly lifted from her mouth. She turned her head just enough to see his face, and what she saw there terrified her more than the gunshots. His eyes held no fear, only cold calculation and something darker. The look of a man who'd killed before and would do it again. What did you do? She breathed. I saw something I shouldn't have. And I refused to stay quiet about it. His jaw clenched. Now 3 good men are dead because of me, and these bastards want to make sure I don't talk to anyone else. The devil's bargain. A voice called out from below, closer now. Cross. We know you're up here. We found your cabin. Real nice setup. Be a shame if something happened to it. Nathaniel's hand moved to his rifle, checking the chamber with practiced silence. Emma watched the transformation, the mountain recluse disappearing, replaced by something harder, more dangerous. A weapon in human form. Come out peaceful, and maybe we let the girl go, another voice added. She's pretty. Be ashamed to waste that. Rage flashed across Nathaniel's face, there and gone in an instant. He turned to Emma, his gray eyes boring into hers. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Every rational instinct screamed at her to run, to take her chances alone in the forest rather than tie her fate to this dangerous stranger. But something in his expression stopped her, a desperation that went beyond self-preservation. He wasn't just trying to save himself. He was trying to save her. Yes, she whispered. His hand found hers, squeezing once. Then stay close. And when I say move, you move. Understand? She nodded. Nathaniel took a deep breath, then stood up from behind the boulder, rifle raised. Victor Reeves. That you down there, you son of a bitch. The forest went silent. Then. Well. Cross. Been a long time. Heard you died in that fire in Seattle. Heard you sold out your entire unit for a government contract. Nathaniel called back. Guess we both heard wrong. Emma's mind reeled. Government contract? What had Nathaniel stumbled into? Walk away, Victor, Nathaniel continued, his voice carrying through the trees. This doesn't have to end bloody. I've got no proof of anything. My word against yours, and we both know how that plays out. Would have believed you 6 months ago. Reeves sounded almost regretful. But then you sent those files to 3 different journalists. Real smart, Cross. Real smart. Too bad 2 of them are already dead. Nathaniel's hand tightened on his rifle. Emma saw the knowledge hit him like a physical blow. People had died because he tried to expose the truth. And the 3rd. His voice was deadly quiet. Still looking. But we'll find her. We always do. A pause. Now about the girl you've got with you. She involved in this? When mercy becomes murder. She's nobody, Nathaniel said flatly. Wrong place, wrong time. Let her walk and I'll come down. No fight. No resistance. Emma grabbed his arm, panic surging. No. She sounds real worried about you, Cross, Reeves laughed. Sweet. Tell you what, send her down first. We'll make sure she gets back to civilization safe and sound. You have my word. Your word. Nathaniel's laugh was bitter. Your word isn't worth the air it takes to speak it. The crack of a rifle shot cut through the air. Bark exploded from a tree 10 feet to their left. A deliberate miss, but closer than before. They were ranging in, testing. Nathaniel grabbed Emma's hand and pulled her deeper into the boulder field, moving with the confidence of someone who knew every inch of this terrain. Cave. Now. Move. They ran. Bullets whipped through the air around them, some close enough that Emma heard the supersonic crack. Nathaniel pulled her left, then right, using every bit of cover as they climbed higher up the mountainside. His hand never left hers, his grip strong and certain even as chaos erupted around them. Her lungs burned. Her legs screamed. But Nathaniel kept pulling her forward, his body always between her and the shooters below. They burst through a curtain of water, the waterfall he'd mentioned, and suddenly they were inside a cavern, the roar of falling water drowning out everything else. Nathaniel shoved her deeper into the darkness, then turned back to the entrance, taking up a defensive position. Shelter in the storm. How many? Emma gasped, trying to catch her breath. For that I counted. Maybe more. He checked his rifle magazine, his movements economical and precise. They'll wait until dark to come up. Infrared scopes, night vision. They've got equipment I don't. So what do we do? He looked at her then. Really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. We survive. Together. 'Cause you're in this now, Emma. The moment they saw you with me, you became a target. The weight of that settled over her like a shroud. Her simple photography trip had become a death sentence. Tell me everything, she said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. If I'm going to die up here, I deserve to know why. Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the rushing water at the cave entrance. Finally he spoke. 8 months ago, I was part of a private military contractor outfit. Good money, gray area work, but nothing that kept me up at night. Then we got assigned to provide security for a pharmaceutical company. Helix Biomedical. Supposed to be routine. Protect their researchers in some third-world countries. Make sure nobody stole their data. He stared at the cave wall, seeing something else entirely. But I started noticing things. Shipments that didn't match manifests. Researchers who asked questions and then suddenly disappeared. And then I found the files. His voice went hard. Human trials. Unauthorized, unethical, on populations who had no idea what was being done to them. Hundreds of people. Maybe thousands. Emma's stomach turned. The government knew? Worse. They funded it. Black budget money buried so deep nobody would ever find it. Helix was developing a weapon, Emma. Biological. Something that could target specific genetic markers. He met her eyes. The ultimate ethnic cleansing tool. And our government was going to sell it to the highest bidder. The truth that kills. I copied everything, Nathaniel continued. Every file, every email, every piece of evidence. Then I ran. But Reeves and his crew, they were part of the operation from the start. They hunted down everyone I tried to give the evidence to. Killed them. Made it look like accidents, suicides, robberies gone wrong. But the third journalist, Emma said. She's still alive. For now. She's gone underground, but they'll find her eventually. They always do. He turned back to the cave entrance, scanning the forest beyond. I should have done this differently. Should have gone to the authorities first, done it by the book. But I knew how deep this went, and I didn't trust anyone. So you came here. To hide. To survive long enough to figure out a way to expose them without getting everyone killed. His laugh was bitter. Fat lot of good that did. Emma moved to stand beside him, her fear crystallizing into something harder, more focused. What's the journalist's name? The one who's still alive. He glanced at her. Why? Because if we make it out of here, someone needs to tell the story. She met his gaze steadily. And if we don't, then at least I know who to trust if by some miracle I survive and you don't. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe or respect. Sarah Chun. Investigative reporter for the Washington Herald. Last I heard, she was holed up somewhere in Vancouver. Okay. Emma pulled out her phone then cursed. No signal. Not this deep in the mountains. We'd have to get to higher ground and that means going back out there. Into their crosshairs. She looked at him, this dangerous stranger who'd somehow become her only hope of survival. What are our chances? Nathaniel was quiet for a moment. Honestly, maybe 30%. And that's being optimistic. When darkness falls, the light outside began to fade, the forest settling into that strange twilight that came just before full dark. Nathaniel moved to the back of the cave, pulling aside some cleverly concealed branches to reveal a small cache, water bottles, energy bars, ammunition, and 2 sets of night vision goggles. You've been planning for this, Emma said. I've been planning for everything. He handed her a water bottle and an energy bar. Eat. We've got maybe 2 hours before they move on us, and you'll need your strength. She forced down the food even though her stomach was in knots. How long have you been living like this? Looking over your shoulder, waiting for them to find you. 6 months. 7 if you count the time I spent setting up this place. He checked his rifle again, a nervous habit she was starting to recognize. It's not living, Emma. It's existing. There's a difference. Is that why you didn't just shoot me when I crossed your fence? The question came out before she could stop it. Because you're tired of being alone? His hand stilled on the rifle. For a long moment he didn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Maybe. Or maybe I saw someone who reminded me there's still a world out there worth protecting. Someone who looks at life through a camera lens and sees beauty instead of threats. The raw honesty in his words made her chest ache. I'm sorry this happened to you. Don't be sorry. Be smart. Be careful. Be ready to run when I tell you to. He turned to face her fully, his gray eyes intense in the fading light. And Emma? If something happens to me out there, if they get me, you run. You don't look back, you don't try to help. You run until you find civilization, and then you find Sarah Chun and you tell her everything. Promise me. Nathaniel. Promise me. The command in his voice left no room for argument. I promise. He nodded, seeming to relax slightly. Then he did something that shocked her. He reached out and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. For what it's worth, I'm glad it was you who crossed my fence. If I'm going to die protecting someone, at least it's someone worth protecting. Before Emma could respond, a sound cut through the waterfall's roar, The snap of a branch closed too close. Nathaniel's entire body went rigid. He raised one finger to his lips, then pointed deeper into the cave. But it was too late. A small canister bounced through the waterfall and landed at their feet, already hissing. Gas! Nathaniel grabbed Emma and pulled her toward the back of the cave. But the smoke was already spreading, thick and choking. She felt her eyes burning, her throat constricting. And then the world went dark. Emma wakes up to find herself separated from Nathaniel, a prisoner of the very men hunting him. But Reeves has made a fatal mistake. He's underestimated what a sniper will do to protect the woman he's sworn to keep alive. The final confrontation is coming, and blood will paint these mountains red. The protector's price. Awakening in hell. Emma's eyes burned as consciousness crept back in fragments. Her head throbbed, her mouth tasted like copper and chemicals, and her hands were bound behind her back with zip ties that bit into her wrists. She's waking up. The voice was unfamiliar, male, laced with casual cruelty. Emma forced her eyes open and immediately wished she hadn't. She was in what looked like Nathaniel's cabin, the one the men had mentioned finding. But it had been ransacked, furniture overturned, papers scattered everywhere. 3 men stood around her, all armed, all watching her with expressions that made her skin crawl. "Where's Nathaniel?" Her voice came out raspy, damaged by the gas. The tallest man, Reeves, she assumed, crouched down to her level. He was handsome in a cold, corporate way, with silver at his temples and eyes like blue ice. "That's what we'd like to know. Your boyfriend got away when the gas grenade went off." Pulled quite the disappearing act. Relief flooded through her. Nathaniel was alive. Still out there. "He's not my boyfriend. I told you. I'm just a photographer who happened to hike 8 miles into restricted private property." Reeves smiled, and it was worse than if he'd threatened her. "Who happened to carry professional-grade camera equipment worth about $20,000. Who happened to have a background in investigative journalism before she switched to wildlife photography 3 years ago." Emma's blood ran cold. They'd done their homework. Fast. Columbia School of Journalism, class of 2019. Reeves continued, almost conversationally. "You wrote some really compelling pieces about government corruption before you had that nervous breakdown and disappeared into nature photography. Tell me, Emma, was it really a breakdown? Or did someone warn you to back off a story you were getting too close to?" "I don't know what you're talking about." His hand shot out, gripping her chin hard enough to bruise. "Don't lie to me. You're not some random hiker. You're exactly the kind of person Cross would reach out to. A journalist with a conscience and nothing left to lose." "I met him yesterday." Emma's voice rose, fear and anger mixing into something sharp. "I crossed his property by accident, and he threatened to shoot me. That's the whole story. The monster's offer." Reeves studied her face for a long moment, then released her chin and stood. "You know what I think? I think you're telling the truth. I think you really are just a photographer who got unlucky. Which means you're useful." He nodded to one of his men, who hauled Emma roughly to her feet and shoved her into a chair. Through the cabin's window, she could see the forest stretching out in all directions. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. "Cross is out there right now," Reeves said, following her gaze. "And he's got a problem. He's got military training, he knows this terrain, and he's got enough ammunition cached around these mountains to hold out for weeks. But he's also got a weakness now." He turned to look at her, and Emma saw the truth in his cold smile. "You." "He doesn't care about me," Emma said, trying to sound convincing. "We just met." "Maybe. But I've known Nathaniel Cross for 8 years. I trained with him, fought beside him. And the one thing I learned is that he's pathologically incapable of leaving people behind. It's his fatal flaw. The reason he's in this mess in the first place." Reeves leaned against the window frame. "He could have kept his head down, taken the payout we offered, lived out his days in peace. But he couldn't let it go. Couldn't stop thinking about all those people in those trials. Had to be the hero." Emma's mind raced. If they were talking about using her as bait, that meant they expected Nathaniel to come for her. Which meant they didn't know where he was, which meant he still had the advantage. She hoped. "So what's the plan?" she asked, trying to buy time. You parade me around until he takes a shot at you? Nothing so crude. Reeves smiled. We're going to wait until full dark. Then we're going to take you out into that clearing. He pointed to an open area about 100 yards from the cabin. And we're going to let Cross make his choice. He can try to save you and die in the attempt, or he can disappear forever and live with the knowledge that he let an innocent woman die because of his principles. Emma's stomach twisted. You're going to kill me either way. Probably, Reeves admitted with chilling honesty. But if Cross comes out of hiding, we'll make it quick. Painless. Professional. But if he doesn't? He let the threat hang in the air. Well, let's just say my men get creative when they're bored. The Watcher returns. As darkness fell, they dragged Emma outside. The temperature had dropped, and her thin hiking clothes did nothing against the mountain cold. They'd replaced the zip ties with rope, binding her to a wooden post that had been driven into the ground in the center of the clearing. 4 men positioned themselves at the edges of the clearing, night vision goggles in place, rifles ready. Reeves stood off to the side, watching the tree line with the patience of a hunter who knew his prey would come. He's out there, Reeves called into the darkness. I can feel him. Cross. I know you can hear me. You've got 30 minutes. After that, my men start making your girlfriend scream, and we broadcast it on every channel we can. Think the journalist in Vancouver might hear about it? Think she might get curious about who this Emma Hayes is, and why she died screaming in a Montana forest. Emma bit back a sob. They were using her as bait for Nathaniel and as a message to Sarah Chun. 2 birds, 1 stone. The minutes crawled by. Emma's arms ached from being bound behind her back. Her legs trembled from cold and fear. The men around the clearing grew restless, shifting their positions, murmuring to each other. 15 minutes, Cross. Reeves checked his watch. Clock's ticking. Be a shame if you let another innocent die because you couldn't. The shot came from nowhere and everywhere at once. One of the men at the clearing's edge dropped like a puppet with cut strings, a spray of red mist hanging in the air where his head had been. Contact. Someone screamed. North Ridge. Another shot. Another man down. Chaos erupted. The remaining men scattered, taking cover, firing blindly into the darkness. But their muzzle flashes only gave away their positions. Nathaniel was invisible, a ghost in the night, and every shot he took found its mark with surgical precision. Emma pressed herself against the post, trying to make herself as small a target as possible. She could hear Reeves screaming orders, could see the remaining men breaking formation, panic overtaking training. 3 shots. 4. 5. And then silence. The reckoning. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps. Bodies lay scattered around the clearing, dark shapes in the starlight. She couldn't see Reeves anywhere. Had he fled? Was he still out there, waiting? A hand touched her shoulder and she screamed. Easy. It's me. Nathaniel's voice, rough and familiar. His knife made quick work of her bonds, and when she was free, she collapsed against him, shaking uncontrollably. You came, she sobbed. You stupid, insane, you came. Always. His arms tightened around her. I told you, I don't leave people behind. Everyone's dead. Everyone but Reeves. He ran when he realized he was losing. Nathaniel pulled back to look at her face, checking for injuries with gentle hands. Are you hurt? Did they? No. Just scared. She tried to smile through her tears. You're a really good shot. His expression darkened. I'm a killer. That's what I am. That's what I'll always be. You're a protector, Emma corrected, her hand finding his cheek. There's a difference. Something in his eyes cracked, and for a moment she saw past the hardened soldier to the man underneath, the one who'd saved her not because he had to, but because he couldn't help himself. We need to move, he said roughly, pulling away. Reeves will call for backup. We've got maybe 2 hours before this place is crawling with reinforcements. Then what? Then we run. He grabbed her hand, already pulling her toward the tree line. I've got a vehicle hidden 3 miles north. We get there, we head for the Canadian border, we find Sarah Chun. And then we finish what I started. His grip tightened on her hand. We expose them. All of them. No matter what it costs. The devil you know. They ran through the forest, Nathaniel leading with the confidence of someone who knew every stone and tree. Behind them, Emma could hear shouts. Reeves rallying, calling for help on his radio. But they had a head start, and Nathaniel moved like a shadow, leaving no trail. 20 minutes later, they reached a rocky outcropping where Nathaniel had hidden an old Jeep under camouflage netting. He pulled it away quickly, tossed Emma into the passenger seat, and started the engine. "Where are we going?" Emma asked as they bounced down a barely visible trail. Service road connects to Highway 93 about 15 miles north. From there, straight shot to the border. He glanced at her. "You'll need a different identity. I've got contacts who can make that happen, but it'll cost everything you have." "I don't care about the money." Emma pulled out her phone. Still no signal. "What about Sarah? How do we contact her?" "We don't. Not until we're across the border. If Reeves is listening to communications, and he is, any call we make puts her in danger." He navigated around a fallen tree, the Jeep's suspension groaning. "We go dark. Completely. It's the only way." They drove in silence for a while, the headlights cutting through absolute darkness. Emma kept glancing at Nathaniel's profile. This dangerous, complicated man who'd upended her entire life in the space of 24 hours. "Why did you really come for me?" she asked finally. "You could have disappeared. Started over somewhere else. Been free." His jaw tightened. "Because I'm tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of good people dying while I play it safe." He looked at her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "And because when I saw you tied to that post, I realized that some things are worth fighting for. Some people are worth risking everything to protect." Emma's heart stuttered. "Nathaniel, I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But in the last 24 hours, you've seen the worst of me and you're still here. You're still trusting me. And that means something." She reached out, covering his hand on the steering wheel. "It means everything." Crossing lines. They reached the highway as dawn broke, the sky turning from black to deep blue to rose gold. Nathaniel kept the speed steady, not too fast to draw attention, not too slow to seem suspicious. They passed through 2 small towns, stopping only for gas paid for in cash. "We need to ditch this vehicle soon," Nathaniel said as they approached the Canadian border. "Reeves will have eyes everywhere. We cross on foot through the forest, pick up another car on the other side. And then we find Sarah Chun. And we end this." But as they turned onto a dirt road that would take them to the border crossing point, Nathaniel's entire body went rigid. Ahead, blocking the road, sat 3 black SUVs. Men in tactical gear stood waiting, weapons ready. And standing in front of them, arms crossed, was Victor Reeves. "Shit!" Nathaniel slammed the Jeep into reverse, but more vehicles appeared behind them, boxing them in. They were trapped. Reeves walked toward them slowly, confident. He stopped 20 feet away and raised his hands in a mockery of surrender. "End of the line, Cross," he called. "You've got 2 choices. Come quietly and I give you my word, my real word, that Emma walks away from this. She goes back to her photography, her quiet life, and nobody ever bothers her again. And the second choice?" Nathaniel's voice was cold. "You fight. We kill you both. And Sarah Chun dies tonight along with anyone she's ever talked to about this story." Reeves smiled. "So what's it going to be, hero? You going to save the girl? Or you going to let your principles kill everyone you've ever tried to protect?" Emma grabbed Nathaniel's arm. Don't you dare sacrifice yourself for me." But Nathaniel was already opening his door, his rifle left on the seat. "I'm coming out," he called. But Emma goes. "Now, let her drive away, and I'll cooperate fully." "Nathaniel, no." Emma tried to grab him, but he pulled away gently, his eyes meeting hers one last time. "It's okay," he said softly. "This was always how it was going to end. At least this way you get to live." He stepped out of the Jeep, hands raised, walking toward Reeves with the calm of a man who'd already accepted his fate. And that's when Emma saw it. A glint of metal in Reeves' hand. Not a gun. A syringe. They weren't going to kill Nathaniel. They were going to take him. Torture him. Make him give up Sarah Chun's location. And then they'd kill everyone anyway. She'd promised him she'd run if something happened. Promised she'd save herself. But Emma Hayes had never been good at keeping promises that required her to abandon people she cared about. She grabbed Nathaniel's rifle, kicked open the passenger door, and took aim at Reeves. "Everyone stop." Her voice cracked, but her hands were steady. "Or I swear to God, I'll kill him." Reeves froze. The tactical team raised their weapons, red dots dancing across her chest. Nathaniel spun around, horror on his face. "Emma, what are you?" "Shut up," she snapped. Then to Reeves. "You want him? You want to end this? Then you deal with both of us. Together. Or neither of us. Your choice." The clearing went silent except for the wind in the trees and the thundering of Emma's heart. Reeves started to laugh. "You're bluffing. You're a wildlife photographer. You've probably never fired a rifle in your..." Emma pulled the trigger. The bullet took off Reeves' ear, blood spattering his shocked face as he dropped to his knees screaming. "Next one goes through your eye," Emma said, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "I may be a photographer, but my father was a Marine Corps drill instructor. I've been shooting since I was 6 years old. So let me be very clear, you let us both walk away right now or I paint these mountains with your brain matter. And then your men can explain to whoever sent you how they let Victor Reeves die because they underestimated a woman with a camera." Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. And then slowly Reeves raised his hand, the signal to stand down. "Let them go," he gasped, his hand pressed to his ruined ear. "Let them both go." The tactical team hesitated, but their leader nodded. Slowly, reluctantly, they lowered their weapons and moved aside, creating a path through the roadblock. Nathaniel stared at Emma like he'd never seen her before. "You! Get in the Jeep," Emma commanded, her rifle still trained on Reeves. "Now." They backed away slowly, Emma keeping Reeves in her sights until they were in the vehicle. Nathaniel took the wheel this time, his hand steady as he navigated through the gap in the roadblock. As they disappeared down the forest road, Emma finally allowed herself to shake, to let the rifle drop, to collapse into her seat. "That was the most insane thing I've ever seen," Nathaniel said, his voice somewhere between awe and terror. "You could have been killed." "So could you." Emma wiped her eyes, surprised to find tears there. "And I meant what I said. We do this together. Both of us. Or neither of us." Nathaniel reached over and took her hand, threading their fingers together. "Together," he agreed quietly. "All the way to the end." 3 months later. The coffee shop in Vancouver was busy enough to provide cover, but not so crowded that conversations would be overheard. Sarah Chun sat across from Emma and Nathaniel, her laptop open, her expression a mixture of excitement and horror as she read through the files Nathaniel had provided. This is bigger than I thought," she whispered. "Helix Biomedical has contracts with 16 different governments. The scope of these trials." She looked up, her eyes wide. "If I publish this, people will die. Important people. Connected people. People are already dying," Nathaniel said quietly. "The only question is whether their deaths mean something." Sarah nodded slowly. "I'll need corroboration. Witnesses. Scientists from the program willing to testify." "I've got names," Nathaniel said. "And I know how to find them. But once you publish, there's no going back. For any of us." "I'm aware." Sarah closed her laptop. "But that's why we do this, isn't it? Because someone has to. Because staying silent makes us complicit." She looked at Emma. "You're sure about this? You could walk away. Go back to your photography. Pretend none of this ever happened." Emma glanced at Nathaniel, at this man who'd risked everything to protect her, to do what was right even when it cost him everything. She thought about the last 3 months, hiding, running, always looking over their shoulder, falling in love in the spaces between fear and hope. "I'm sure," Emma said. "Some stories need to be told. No matter the cost." Sarah smiled. "Then let's burn it all down." 6 months after that, the exposé ran on the front page of every major newspaper in North America. Within 48 hours, Helix Biomedical stock had cratered. Within a week, 3 senators had resigned, 2 generals were under investigation, and the FBI had opened a formal inquiry into black budget programs. Emma and Nathaniel watched the news from a small cabin in the Canadian Rockies. Different mountains, same isolation, but this time chosen freely rather than forced. Think it'll stick? Emma asked, leaning against his shoulder. Some of it. Maybe enough. Nathaniel wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. But there'll always be another Reeves, another Helix. Corruption's like weeds. You can pull one up, but the roots go deep. So we keep pulling, Emma said simply. He looked down at her. This fierce woman who'd pointed a rifle at trained killers to save his life, who'd given up everything to help expose the truth. She smiled. I seem to recall promising to do this together. All the way to the end. This might be a very long end, he warned. Good. She tilted her face up to kiss him, soft and sweet and full of promise. I've always preferred the never-ending stories anyway. Outside, snow began to fall on the mountains. Somewhere out there, Sarachun was following new leads, tracking new corruption. Somewhere, Reeves was planning his revenge, nursing his wounded pride in his missing ear. But in this moment, in this cabin, two people who'd found each other in the worst circumstances held tight to something better. Something worth protecting. Something worth fighting for. And when the next threat came, because it would come, they'd face it the same way they'd faced everything else. Together. Always together.